intermittent fasting, and the effect on athletic performance. Navigating the world of dieting can be intense and confusing, but even more so as an athlete. As an athlete, peak performance is the top priority. Achieving this is often a matter of balancing caloric intake, hydration, and macronutrients, but within the past decade, more athletes have been drawn to a nutritional regimen known as intermittent fasting. But what is intermittent fasting, and how does it influence peak performance? Can it be used to help athletes achieve their required weight for sports, such as wrestling, martial arts, and boxing? Let's take a look at the science to understand the effects of intermittent fasting on athletic performance. What is intermittent fasting? The broad definition of intermittent fasting is a long period of abstinence from food and/or fluid consumption, followed by a shorter period in which food and fluid consumption is permitted. The idea behind the intermittent fasting has been around for centuries and often tied to religious practices, but its recent, widespread use has been tied to the health claims of weight loss, lower blood pressure, and reduced risk for metabolic diseases, such as type 2 diabetes. One of the underlying mechanisms is that by extending the daily fasting duration, free fatty acids are mobilized, which increases fat oxidation and increases the production of ketones. There are several forms of intermittent fasting, with a wide range of definitions for time-restricted eating periods and fasting periods. The most common form of intermittent fasting is the 16-to-8 approach, which consists of 16 hours of fasting and an 8-hour period of caloric intake, or eating window. The typical 16-to-8 approach does not limit the consumption of fluids to the 8-hour eating window. However, some approaches, like those practiced during the Muslim month of Ramadan, restrict fluid consumption outside of the designated eating window. There are also categories of intermittent fasting used to treat overweight and obesity, namely continuous energy restriction and intermittent energy restriction. These strategies include intermittent fasting, more than 60% energy restriction on 2 to 3 days per week or on alternate days, and time-restricted feeding, limiting the daily period of food intake to 8 to 10 hours or less on most days of the week. How does intermittent fasting impact athletic performance? Given the renewed interest in intermittent fasting, several studies have been conducted to assess the impact of different fasting methods and forms on overall peak athletic performance. However, the definition of intermittent fasting varies from study to study, making it difficult to determine the benefits, if any, of fasting as an athlete. One review summarized the findings of several other studies and broke down their findings by exercise type. High-intensity exercise, endurance sports, and resistance training were included as the categories for discussion. The overall findings determined that athletes participating in high-intensity exercises experienced a dip in performance that lasted from a few days to a few weeks. Endurance athletes experienced a marginal decrease in performance or no effect at all, depending on the fasting method that was being studied. Resistance athletes saw no negative effect to muscle mass gained or maintained, but saw a decrease in fat mass. Overall, more consistency between studies is needed to fully assess the impact of fasting on athletic performance. Many of the contradictory outcomes can be explained due to the forms of fasting studied being varied. While evidence suggests negative to no effect, it is because of this variance that the overall impact remains inconclusive. If you are interested in trying intermittent fasting, discuss your plans with a provider or nutritionist, and concentrate on your body's response to the changes in your diet, as there is no one-size-fits-all approach to achieving your health and nutritional goals.